Hello everyone, and welcome to Export Development Canada's webinar, Think Big, Exporting for Growth. I'm Melanie Carter, the moderator for today's session and an account manager here at EDC. So just before we begin, please note that we are also webcasting today's session using simultaneous French translation. So if you would prefer to listen en français, please click on the Français button that's on your screen. Alors, pour notre auditoire francophone, nous vous offrons une traduction simultanée. Veuillez tout simplement choisir le bouton français sur votre écran. For those of you who are not as familiar with Export Development Canada, or EDC, I'll just mention that we are Canada's export credit agency. EDC helps Canadian companies, both large and small, from all sectors to respond to international business opportunities. Each year, we help more than 7,000 Canadian businesses dealing in more than 200 markets worldwide to prosper and grow. So today, the purpose of our discussion is to share some insight on how and why small companies have used exporting as a way to grow their businesses and increase their customer base. Now, before I go any further, I'd like to introduce you to three very special guests we have here with us today. So first we have Jayson Myers, the President and CEO of the Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters. Welcome, Jayson.
Thanks, Melanie.
And second, we have David Barron, CEO and founder of Cowater International. Welcome, David.
Salut, Melanie. Thanks for having me today.
Thanks. And last but certainly not least, we have Jeff Fuller, President and founder of Fuller Industries. Jeff will be joining us today off-site from our Mississauga office. Welcome, Jeff. We're happy you're able to join us.
Hi, Melanie. Happy to be here. Thanks.
And of course, I'd like to welcome all of our webinar participants who have joined us here today. We hope you'll find today's discussion to be valuable and informative. And just a reminder that EDC holds webinars and other events quite regularly. So be sure to check them on our website at edc.ca under the Events tab. For the agenda today, we'll be discussing with our panel experts on why exporting is a great way to grow your business and expand your customer base. You will get to hear from two Canadian companies who grew from a small business to a large one through exporting and using different growth strategies. Then, during the last 15 to 20 minutes, you will have an opportunity to ask questions to our panel members. Also, we will be sending you a link to the archived version of this webinar. So if you miss a point or want to review something, don't worry, you'll be able to do so. So let's get started. First, I'd like to start off with you, Jayson. Can you tell us a little bit about the Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters Association, or CME?
Sure. Well, CME is Canada's largest industry and trade association. We've got about 3,000 members across the country representing all sectors of manufacturing, of industry, and of companies that export. And in fact, probably about 10,000 companies as a whole who are clients of the services that we provide. But CME has been in business for about 143 years. We started in 1871, a federal mandate put in place by John A. Macdonald, and our mandate has been the same ever since. It's to improve the competitiveness of Canadian manufacturers and open up markets around the world and help Canadian businesses export around the world. And so over the past century and a half, seen a lot of changes. The nature of exporting has changed. The business of exporting has changed. And today, we're really focusing on helping companies provide a solution to their customers in markets around the world. That's really the core of our service. We do a lot of work with government to improve the business conditions for companies operating in Canada.
Canadian governments or international governments?
Well, Canadian and international governments. We're very active on the trade policy front as well. But a lot of what we do is to help support Canadian companies that are doing business in international markets. And that extends from helping them identify qualified leads and qualified business opportunities to helping them understand what it takes to be an exporter, what it takes to do business in international markets, all the way through to partnering with organizations like EDC Trade Commissioner Service, other organizations to give them support once they've entered a new market.
So when they come to you, they're not necessarily exporters. They're looking into exporting as well, correct?
That's right. We're focusing on helping them not only find the services they need, because what we're really trying to do is leverage up this vast network of manufacturers and exporters to provide preferred access to services that will help them do business internationally. But we're not only providing the service, we're also helping them understand what it takes to export and what it means to develop an export strategy. And I think that's the first step for any company that's looking at going into new markets.
Interesting. That's great. Thank you so much. Now, when companies think of exporting, they do typically think of direct exporting, which means, taking your goods and services and shipping it or selling it directly to a foreign market. I would like to touch upon something that you talked about in a white paper that you helped EDC write called Exports and Company Growth. In that paper, you mentioned that there are other types of exporting strategies.
Sure.
Some, one of them being the indirect export strategy, and that is very helpful for companies to grow. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. It really comes down to picking the right strategy, doing what is right for the individual company itself. But it also speaks to how exporting has changed. This is not just simply about getting a product or a service or a technology to a customer outside of Canada, although that's what people would think of as exporting, as those international sales. But if you're going to do that today, you have to provide a solution. And to provide that solution, there are all sorts of different strategies about how you would provide that solution to end customers. Part of it could be direct sales. But another very successful strategy might be to partner with other organizations for licensing of technology, or for joint product development, for joint design, for marketing, for manufacturing, for distribution, or just find that sales agent who will help you go through a market and find the customer, work with the customer, and service the customer along the way. So that's partly an indirect strategy, but I think Canadian companies especially need to think about opportunities to partner with large companies that are already doing business internationally. I was struck a few years ago. I was with a small water technology company from Manitoba who had a great technology to clean up the harbor by Kai Tak Airport. We went to Hong Kong, and they made a pitch to the Hong Kong government, said, look at this great technology. And the Hong Kong government officials agreed, great technology, but they told us that we don't buy technologies, we buy engineering solutions. So
Right.
in that case, they probably would have had a better chance of getting that contract if they had gone to Dave at Cowater and said, can you help me develop this engineering solution that you could implement in Hong Kong. And I think all too often we think of exports as direct sales, where perhaps we should be looking at how to navigate our way through a supply chain existing already in Canada to take advantage of the fact that these larger companies are doing business internationally. It certainly reduces the risk, but it also provides some great opportunities to go into new markets, find new customers that you probably can't find yourself if you're trying to sell directly into new markets.
And then you tap into that agents or that distributor's market intel and client list and so on.
Exactly, and expertise, because companies that are already operating in new markets, they know how to deal with customers. They know a great deal about the customer solution. So if you can tap into that, if you can partner here in Canada to provide that solution internationally, then I think you're a step ahead, and it certainly does reduce the risk and reduces the cost of going into new markets, particularly if you're a small company.
Interesting. So I'm glad you talked about that in such a way. Companies need to know, Canadian companies need to know on, what are the strategies available to be able to expand outside of Canada. So for those of you who have not had a chance to read the white paper, written by Jayson, it is on our website, so you can download it. It is definitely a good read. So now let's move on to our two Canadian companies, David and Jeff. So David, let's start with you.
Sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about Cowater International?
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, so briefly, Cowater International is a management consulting company, but exclusively focusing on underdeveloped and emerging economies. Most of our work today is in Africa and Asia, with a growing portfolio of business in Latin America. And what we do, well, we are basically bringing the best that Canada has to offer across the board to these countries, to the governments of these countries, which are running the place. Example projects at the top end of government, so at federal level of government, we're working with the Auditor General in Nepal right now to help them bring in international best practices in how they conduct their business in providing oversight on what the rest of the government is doing. Another example would be a central bank project in Vietnam, where we're working with the Central Bank of Vietnam, bringing in all that excellent Canadian expertise in the banking sector to help the Vietnamese bring up their standards to international best practices. Moving down to more community-based, grassroots type of work that we're doing, we have a citizen engagement project in Pakistan that we're implementing right now. And this project is touching about 2-3 million people in 12 different districts in the northwest frontier province of Pakistan to help those people organize themselves to demand better social services from their government. So education, health, water, garbage collection, all those social services that we know and appreciate here in Canada. In these countries, people have to do a good job in demanding better service from the government. So we'll be working with the people, but also with those local governments to help them have the skills they need to give the better services, but also back in Islamabad with the central government with laws and regulations of what the government needs across the board in the federal, provincial, and municipal and districts. That has to be there to provide the base for actually getting the job done. Another project, more of a construction oversight work that we do, as the name Cowater may say, in northern Mozambique. We're just finishing off a project where we actually picked up an award for it last week by the Canadian Engineers of Ontario. For our work with these installing 600 water points in northern Mozambique. So that was a 4-year project, and we put in the ground these 600 water points and trained all of the local communities how to run their new asset.
A true international business.
Yeah, working all over the globe in a lot of interesting and funky countries that a lot of people only have maybe heard about or see the name on the map. We're there.
All right. So I had the pleasure of interviewing you a few weeks back for our Trade Talk series. For those of you out there who are not familiar with our Trade Talk is a monthly video series that where we discuss exporting topics that are relevant to Canadian companies. So David, in that video, you mentioned Cowater's revenue had tripled in the past 10 years. So if you think back 10 years ago, when you were just starting up, and you were just a small company, like many of you watching out there, what changes or decisions happened in your business at that time that led you to go through this tremendous growth?
I think there was a couple key things there. Cowater, we've been around, for a while, but you're right. About 10 years ago, we went through this, started the beginning of this growth spurt. And really, it was a changing environment around us in terms of the marketplace and the type of jobs that were available. The fact that we had some track record behind us as a small company, but building up that track record over a number of years certainly helped a lot. But I think the biggest thing was the vision of being able to see beyond what is just in front of us in terms of the opportunities of today, but really reaching and thinking big. For those big opportunities that are out there that maybe we didn't seem we would qualify for or would actually be able to win, even though we knew we had the expertise to do it. So I think it's taking that risk, being a visionary and kind of going for it, because in Canada there's a tremendous amount of expertise. We're known around the world with very high quality in everything that we do. And so our business was really wrapping all of that expertise up and selling it essentially to where it's needed in these underdeveloped economies. And when we did that, we realized, hey, there's a lot of people that really want our services. And we were slowly be able to kind of grow what was once a big project at Cowater maybe 10 years ago would have been 3 to 5 million. Now a big project is 20 million plus. So through that process and kind of taking our place, we've experienced this growth, and then of course it comes with the challenges of managing the growth.
So what were those challenges in managing the growth?
There's managing the growth, making sure you're not taking on too much risk throughout that growth, and to be successful in it. I would say a few key things: having the right people on the team. Like anyone who's out there who's running a business, HR, people management is huge. As much as leaders or executives try to get away from it, it's everything. Every day we're involved in getting the right people on the job. So I think at Cowater, we went through. We had the right people on the job, and that really, our team is who we are, and because of that, we were able to get through the growth. But also making sure we're tackling the right opportunities, the right projects, and keeping that perseverance going. And you don't win every time when you when you submit a bid or an idea or a concept. You don't always win, but keeping that perseverance there, taking your lessons learned from the times where you were almost there, you came in second, but you were a few points away from winning the qualification. Taking those lessons learned, applying them to the next one, and for us, that was a part of the winning formula.
You mentioned a few key words there, so persistence and people and having a vision, right?
Yeah,
Excellent.
absolutely.
That's very helpful. It means a lot to our listeners out there who are small businesses and who are interested in seeing how companies like yourself has grown and expanded to becoming, as large as you are. So for those of you who have not had a chance to see our Trade Talk series, it's definitely worth a view. So you can find that series on our website under the Knowledge Center. So let's move on to Jeff. Jeff, can you tell us a little bit about Fuller Industries?
Our main product that we sell is engineered process piping systems. And our real niche is rubber line pipe systems. Rubber line systems will increase the life of a pipe or a tank by up to 25 times if there's abrasion in it. So being in Sudbury, Ontario, which is our home, and familiar with mining, we began serving the local market with rubber line pipe and fittings. We recognized that in the international mining marketplace, that the grades were getting lower, the projects were getting farther away, the size of the systems were getting bigger, and we recognized that we could take this expertise that we had here and really export it and sell it all over the world. And so that's what we did. We focused on quality, we focused on the compressed delivery times, adding massive value to the customers and being the real expert in what we do. And so we've taken that over the last 10 years and really become the world expert in mega project rubber line systems.
Excellent. So, you said that you quickly became international. So, was that a decision from the beginning? And when did you actually decided that exporting was the way to grow your business?
We really decided right off the bat that if the company was going to be of any size and hit a critical mass, that we would have to export. What we do is such a niche product that in Northern Ontario, there just wasn't enough room for it. We really had to export right off the bat.
So did you do that on your own? Jayson was mentioning different exporting strategies by relying on others or finding distributors or agents to be able to do that. You mentioned working with mining companies. So have you been relying on them to make yourself known out there? How have you been getting your leads?
Yeah, the strategy that we've used is we try to find a mining project when it's a little speck of dust on the horizon and get involved as early as we can. We talk to companies like David's, which are the management consulting companies. Typically, a large mining company will hire the EPC or an engineering company to manage the project. So we'll make sure we understand where the projects are, what stage they're at, and all the way along, we try to add value to the customer and to the engineering for that project. So as a result, as the project goes along, we learn more and more about it. So it is sort of like Jayson was saying, indirect, because we're dealing with, for instance, a Canadian engineering company like an SNC Lavalin or an AMEC, and who is doing a project for a Canadian company like a Barrick or a Teck. And they will, so we're doing the work for them, even though the end product might end up in Mongolia or Madagascar or Suriname or Chile or the Dominican.
Right, right. And have you, what challenges have you come across as you were trying to build your business outside of the country?
The major challenge that we had was the perception that we are too far away from the customer being in Sudbury, Ontario. So we had to overcome that and show that the massive value that you got from dealing with a good quality Canadian company would overcome that distance. So we've been able to compress lead times, deliver the project faster, deliver it with higher quality, add more value to solve the problems as they came along in terms of project management. So those were the biggest challenges, is that why wouldn't we use someone in Africa if the project is in Africa? So those were the things that we have to we still overcome on a project by project basis.
Interesting. David, have you been concerned with that at all? Have you ever come across that?
Yeah, often with our clients, where technology is great. It decreases the connection and quality connection you can get with people on the other side of the world.
Right.
But the time zones are still very, very real. And at the end of the day, we are very far away. And for us, it's always been doing what we need to do and love to do as Canadians, which is travel, get overseas, get in front of our clients, shake their hand, present them our solutions, or maybe in Jeff's case, present a sample, and create that connection. And there is nothing like it in the world. Nothing, any Skype conversation or a hard document that you're going to send overseas through the courier can match than that actually getting there on the ground and meeting the people you're working with.
You can always rely on partners and agents, or you were talking about the trade commissioners earlier, can rely on them to one extent, but in the end,
Yeah.
I guess when you make that decision to export and to go out, you need to be out there.
For us, those are kind of door openers. Like we work with the trade commissioners all around the world, and they're fantastic working for us, often sending us RFPs that they've stumbled across in the local newspapers and press or clippings, and agents are the same way, opening doors. But at the end of the day, as a company, you have to make that investment. You have got to get there. You've got to get in front of those people.
And if these people are opening doors for you, it's because you've created that relationship with them. I assume they
That's
know
right.
your capabilities, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, you've done your work of excellence in the past, in that they're feeling confident in presenting you as an option to the client. So.
And then, Jayson, have your members, discussed the same situation? Are they having issues, making themselves known out there as a small company, saying, I am small, out far away in Canada, but I can fulfill on this contract, I can perform?
Sure, absolutely, and I think it does come down to the personal relationships, the perseverance and the patience to be able to build a business around a personal relationship. That's crucial. But as a Canadian company doing business internationally, a part of it is to present the value in terms of the total cost of the project, the total landed cost of the project, and to present that value in terms of not just the cost but also the solution. it's understanding what the customer needs. It's being able to work with the customer, design the product, the service, which is so important, the technology around what the customer requires. And the third thing, which is extremely important here, is as a result of that, it's all about people. You can't work with a customer domestically or internationally if you don't have people on the ground who can understand what the requirements are and who can help you deliver the service to the customer at the end of the day. Yeah.
Excellent. So Jeff, thank you so much for the advice and what you've explained about how you actually were able to expand into new market. Now that we've heard some very helpful growth strategies, I would like to see what these companies face when exporting. Based on the information that was given, I can tell you that ADC has a suite of solutions that can help you. We offer credit insurance to protect your export receivables. We offer financing for you and your buyer. And we have a great team of experts here at EDC who can lead you in the right direction when you are making the decision to export. So visit us online, and you can get in touch with us. We are always happy to help and answer any questions that you may have. So just to touch quickly on the insurance, on the credit insurance, this is to give you protection at 90% when you do sell on open terms. This is, quite valuable to customers. When you do deal in foreign countries, you have this opportunity. The customer is asking you for open terms. If you are able to offer these open terms to your customer, it creates that trust relationship with your buyer right from the get-go, right? But as you are trying to do that, you have to ask yourself the question, if you are going to be losing that $50,000 sale because the customer can't pay, defaults on the payment, or goes bankrupt, what happens to your business? So that gives you great coverage. I'm sure that that's something that your members are using quite a bit, I assume.
Absolutely. It's not only helps to protect the risk, but it's a great value as part of that solution that I was talking about for customers.
That's right. And then in terms of the financing, we work mostly with the Canadian Exporters Bank. So what we do is we work in partnership with your financial institution to offer them a guarantee for them to be able to lend more. So on that, I would like to thank all of our guest speakers today. I myself work with Canadian companies daily who are looking for this kind of information. So I know you have helped our audience today to learn more about why exporting is such a great strategy to grow their business. So Jayson, to wrap things up, can you give me or give us 2 or 3 pieces of advice for companies out there who are looking to grow via exporting?
Just 2 or 3?
Two or three to start.
Well, first of all, look to the opportunity. Look to that solution for your customer. Really, as you would here at home in your domestic market, really understand what your customer expects, what is the mark of success from your customer's point of view. And think of your export as that customer solution, not as a product or a service or a technology. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is be aware of the risks. Be aware of the pitfalls. Be aware of the rules, the regulations that you have to work with. And third, as part of that strategy of taking advantage of the opportunities, being aware and mitigating the risks. Be aware that no company can solve all of these problems on their own, and that's where partnership is so important. Beginning from understanding the opportunities. A business association like CME can help just by providing an opportunity to speak to other companies that have done this, that are operating in these markets, understanding what they went through, how they saw the opportunity, maybe identifying some partner opportunities, but also understanding the risks. All the way through to working with great partners like EDC, like trade commissioners. There's a tremendous amount of opportunity for Canadian companies with partners to go into these markets, whether it's directly or indirectly. But you have to know what you're doing, and you have to have a strategy. You can't simply think of your exports as taking that product that's sitting in your warehouse in inventory and try to sell it somewhere around the world. That's not going to be a successful strategy for you.
So where would you start? What would, when you say you need to have a strategy, what is the best way to start? Talking with people to try to assess that, or hiring someone who would do that specifically for you, or is there a best way, a best approach?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I would think for a small company with a great product, a great technology, or a great service, it's understanding what your core business is, what your core capabilities are, and then taking a look at how that can be applied, both at home and leveraging on your strengths and connections here in Canada, and then how those capabilities could be applied elsewhere in other markets. And don't try to take on the world, and learn realize that failure is a part of the business, and a
Right.
lot of the learning comes from the failures that come along the way. But be prepared to manage those failures, because that's part of the risk of doing the business in the first place.
Right. So David, I'll hand it to you for 2 or 3 key advice. Jayson just mentioned failures. You were talking before this webinar about bidding on things that you don't necessarily win, and how that has been a learning experience.
Yeah, so what I was saying for my team, my business development team, was it's often, for me, just as good to identify when opportunities are on the board. We're looking at 20 different opportunities. We're trying to decide which ones we're going to go for. For those guys to quickly X off a few, for me, that's a win. Because to go after each and every opportunity is an investment of both time and money and energy. So if we can get that 20 down to 2 or 3 as quickly as possible that are real opportunities, for me, that's really important. So that comes back to not spreading yourself too thin, really focusing in on what's built for your expertise, where you have the capabilities, and you can win. And maybe the second thing is also know you have the right partners to work with. For the business that we're in, 80% of the contracts that we have, we're in partnership of some kind. Whether it's a local company on the ground in the countries that we're working in, 1 or 2 or 3 sometimes, but also Canadian companies that may have a very specific technical expertise that we need, because we're the managing contractor in the middle of a large complex project, on the hook for the whole thing. But we're bringing in partners, both local and Canadian and international, to help us bring the best solution to our clients. So partnerships, particularly local partnerships, very, very important.
So in terms of advice, I'm sure people would want to know, once you're on the ground, or actually, how do you get prepared when you get ready to be on the grounds in the foreign market? What are your strategies? Do you,
if it's
look
totally,
at cultural, issues? And
if it's a new place for us, now we've worked in over 65 countries, so we've got local links in a lot of different places already established, and we're on the ground already established. But if we're going into somewhere new, totally new market, or somewhere maybe we haven't been in 10 years, touching base with both the Canadian Embassy and the trade commissions, of course, they're there. They can help open doors. They can help actually identify local partners. That's one thing we use the trade commissions for. If there's a project where we don't have those right connections, we'll get the trade commissioner working for us, and they do. And maybe they may not identify the perfect partner, but when you go there and you have people to meet already, quickly, if you've got the right people on the mission, they're on to the next and the next and the next people that they're able to meet through those first interviews that they're having. So your homework before you go, definitely important. Get things lined up, touch base with your embassy. If it's in the kind of markets that we work in, which is the most underdeveloped places, and get your local contacts lined up.
Excellent. And Jeff, I'll ask you the same question. What are the 2 or 3 advice that you would like to leave with our audience here today?
Well, I think just to reiterate that you really do have to have that strategy. You have to decide what you're the best at the world at and what you can actually export. Once you've got that, I think it's really important that once you have the plan, that you stick to it and recognize that it's going to take some amount of time before you're successfully exporting on a regular basis. You don't want to say, well, you know what, I'm slow domestically, so I'm going to focus on exporting until my business picks up. You have to stay with it to have it develop over a bit of time. And just like David and Jayson both said, recognize that there's some really good partners out there, the EDC, the CME, the trade commissions, your peers in industry that can help you. The problems that you're going to have exporting, you're probably not going to be the first one having them. So go out there and use that support network. So I think that would be the 3 key things that I would leave with you.
That's great, thank you. You've heard our 3-panel talk about growth strategies, challenges, and lesson learned. So if you have any questions, now is the time to ask our experts. So let's get started on our open question period. So we'll try to squeeze in as many questions as possible. If you'd like to ask a question, please click on the Q&A button on the lower left-hand side of the screen. As we wait for the first question to come in, I do have a question for you guys, David and Jeff. When our audience registered for this webinar, they were asked a question on what their biggest challenges were. So most people who registered said that it was accessing foreign market intelligence and information. So do you have this challenge, and how did you overcome it?
Okay.
How to access foreign market intel and
so
information.
It's knowing where to go, I guess. So yeah, the access points. And again, depending on what your foreign markets are, I would look to, if you're feeling alone, your Canadian government agencies that are out there to help you, again, through those trade commissions, or through EDC. If you're not working with EDC already, you should. For us, again, it's those avenues, but it's our people on the ground. It's the local partners that are already there. It's doing our homework to see what else is being done in that industry that we're looking at. Talking to other international firms who are already there. It's not being afraid to pick up the phone and make a phone call. That's a very low-cost investment.
Right.
And it's those types of investments that if you get enough of them there that are working in your favor, that you make the bigger cost investment, which is jumping on a plane and actually trying to get in front of your future client.
Right. Jeff, anything to add to this?
Yeah, I think it's taking advantage of the support that's out there and your peers, and like David said, the EDC and like CME and all these. The information is out there, and you really have to decide that you want to get it and keep going until you find it, because it's out there.
So we do have our first question coming in here. Maybe for Jayson. The person here asks, does Canada export more products or services?
That's a hard question.
They're asking the question
really
probably
question
because David and Jeff, do project, right?
Yeah, and Jeff's got a product. But let's take a look at Jeff's product. And you can speak to this, Jeff, better than I could. But it's hard to sell a product today unless you sell a service around it. I think that's really crucial to understand if what you're really selling is a solution. So the way that our statistics work, our merchandise exports are probably about 4 times as large as the services that we sell, but it's really difficult to try to define services exports in the first place. And as I said before, I don't know of any product, and I would include in that even oil and gas and commodity products that are sold just because they're a product. That there has to be some service component around that, and services just don't. I mean, services can take place over the internet, and there's much more in terms of, say, online maintenance of products and equipment today, but basically you can't do that without people. Service is all about people, and again, this is we really have to realize how the nature of this business of exporting has changed. It's that distinction between products and services just completely breaks down.
I can
think.
add one thing onto that, which is quality. And that goes for both the product side and Jeff and what he's doing in his niche.
Absolutely.
In his niche product that he has. There's no way that he's selling, manufacturing and selling his product that he's making up there in Sudbury, eventually into Mongolia, unless the quality is not up here. And the same goes for services. He's selling our Canadian services overseas into all these different countries. Why are they there? Why are they hiring us? Because of the quality of the work we do. And that's something that all of us as Canadians, we live in, and what I've noticed, we almost take it for granted that in our everyday lives and what we're doing, our people like our innovators out there like Jeff, who are coming up with new ideas. The standards we put on ourselves brings the quality up very, very high, and that's what Canadians are known for around the world. And so even for those who are looking at getting into the business of exporting or bringing out what their new service to market, I have no doubt as Canadians that quality is going to be there. So don't be shy to try to show it off to the world.
Excellent. So if you, as a company, offer one piece of the puzzle, ideally it goes back to the, being part of the supply chain. You want to find partners who will help you be the, beginning to end type service to your buyer, right?
Exactly, and I think at the same time, realizing that a lot of larger companies are looking for innovative solutions themselves. They're looking not only for their own business, but new technologies, new ways of improving the value that they're offering their customers. So at the same time that Canadian businesses may be looking for supply chain opportunities, keep in mind that there are an awful lot of internationally based enterprises that are looking for those technologies, those services, the innovative products and the quality often, and the brand often. And the best way to do that is through some form of partnership.
And sometimes the brand is just stamped from Canada, right? I mean, as you said earlier, David,
that
being
gets us
a
through
Canadian
the door.
company.
Often at the end of the day, you got to deliver, and the client has to be happy, and the quality's got to be there. But certainly, the maple leaf gets us through the door.
Yeah. So on to the next question. Do Canadian Canadian exporters usually partner with Canadian companies who know foreign markets, or do they tend to partner with companies in the foreign market?
Well, let me start off, and because I think the strategy could be different here, but it's if you look at our exports and you think about it, half of what we export is actually intra-company exports. It's Bombardier selling to Bombardier, and BlackBerry selling to BlackBerry, or Ford selling to Ford internationally, and that actually leads us into some. If you looked at the statistics, we would never understand the richness of our export activity. The biggest selling foreign car in Szechuan, I was told a couple of years ago, is a Canadian car. Well, if you look at our stats, we don't export cars to China.
Yeah.
But it was a Chrysler made in Brampton, biggest selling car in southern China, and it was all distributed through Detroit. But that's an example, I think, of the distribution systems, the supply chains that are in place already. And of course, if you're somewhere in that auto supply chain producing car seats, you'll never be exporting those car seats, but you will be providing those car seats in a vehicle that is eventually sold into China. So there's a lot of business built around that. But I think the opportunities today to sell internationally through internationally based, foreign-based multinationals is very real. Many of those multinationals are operating here in Canada, and we know how to deal with multinationals and large customers, medium size. We don't have to be very large to be multinational in the United States. But I think there are an awful lot of opportunities now opening up in Europe as well, or in other markets. Some of the largest engineering manufacturing companies in the world are European based. So when we look at the Canada-European trade agreement, for instance, let's not think only in terms of Canadian-European trade, but how this opens opportunities to partner with European multinationals to go to China or Latin America or Africa or the Middle East.
Right, and I'm thinking if you are a small company and you have limited resource, maybe starting with someone who is here close to home and who knows the foreign market might be, a first approach, as a way to get your feet wet type thing.
Exactly. It's simply, I think, do what you know best. You know your product, you know your service. You probably have a really good sense of the marketplace for what you're doing here domestically, and what are the opportunities to leverage that through some broader supply chain relationship.
Right. So Jeff, you might be able to speak to this. When you said that you partnered with the mining companies, a lot of them are close to home for you, right? Being in Sudbury.
Absolutely. I mean, if you can start working with a Canadian, that's great, because it's a Canadian dealing with a Canadian company. We understand each other, we understand the culture, we don't have any language problems. It's a really good place to start if you can do that. And that's precisely what we did. Got a little bit of leverage in Canada, and now we're starting to deal with some US-based companies because we have the reputation. But certainly, if you can, it's a great place to start.
Excellent. Next question. What is your advice on exporting a product that is just starting being accepted in a certain market? Which trade organization would you suggest to contact? Great question.
CME?
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
say. Right here.
Well, let me kind of respond, because I think it's often what I find is that companies with a specialized technology, they really know the technology inside and out. They really know how to produce that technology well, or that product well. But the question is, well, what are the applications for the technology? What would appeal to customers, or how could customers use that technology in what they're doing in terms of the solution they're providing their customers? And so it's, I mean, there are specific associations that can help you in bringing a technology to market and commercializing the technology, and I think it's extremely important to work with them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you're looking more broadly at applications that could fit across a number of different industry sectors, or a number of different businesses, then it is important to branch out and to participate. What we're trying to do is encourage more interaction between larger companies or mid-sized companies that are active internationally, and companies with specific technologies, and some of the startup companies. We spend a lot of time trying to connect university researchers with industry, but now I think there's an awful lot more opportunity to connect some of the smaller startups with technology to applications where they may not have even thought about these applications, but perhaps a larger company could see either a new use of that technology, or maybe because of their connections internationally could see how that technology could fit into something that they're doing in
Right.
international markets.
I'll just take this opportunity to remind you that you can submit questions in French. Donc, vous pouvez nous lancer une question en français. Nous serons contents de les adresser. For David, after submitting proposals for RFPs and not winning the project, how do you ensure you get feedback from the RFP issuer so that you can learn and improve?
Right. Okay. So, great question. And again, this increases. It's a really quality question, even though it's talking about not winning a bid, and taking the lessons learned from submitting a bid and not winning. And it actually, for us, it varies. Most of our clients, when we're bidding on something, will give us a detailed debrief of how we did and where we can improve. And I know I've talked to other companies who, as soon as they lose, that's it, they're moving on to the next one.
Right.
Where for us, for our business development team, it's critical they get in front of the client, and even sometimes the client isn't ready for us to ask for that debrief, but we say, hey, in the RFP notice, it said down here, in section XYZ on the very last page, to the non-successful bidders, you will give a debrief. And we force them to give us that debrief and tell us exactly where we could have done better, where did we miss the mark, what were their expectations. And it's taking all, and so we make sure we do that, to take all of those lessons learned. So next time when we come back, we can do just that little bit better that gets you over the mark. Because of course, in a competitive world, coming in second is great, but yeah, it doesn't cut it in the long run.
Right.
It's kind of first or nothing in the real world.
Did you want to add anything to this, Jeff?
He's laughing, so
Yeah.
he understands, I think, what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think what you want to do is get as much information as you can after the fact, and find out what it is that you can do next time. And I think, David, you kind of nailed it a little bit earlier. It's about having that relationship. If you have the good relationship with the customer, they're going to be honest and frank with you and let you know where you've gone wrong. So I think that, really that's what you got to do.
So this question could be applicable to all three of you, so I will start with Jayson. What role do trade show and conferences play in developing foreign markets?
It really depends on how it fits into your strategy, and the trade show and the conference that you go to and who is attending. I've been to some trade shows, a lot of them here in North America, where the trade show is basically a show where people will come and kick the tires and come and take a look around. On the other hand, I've been to trade shows where the decision makers are at those shows, or conferences where the decision makers are at those shows, and where a great deal of business is done. And people expect that as part of the show or the conference. So it's really important, and it depends on the industry sector, the technology that the show or the conference is centered on. But know the audience and choose those shows very, very carefully.
It's again doing your research up front, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's really doing it there. I don't know, for us, there's an endless amount of trade shows, conferences going on. All kinds of staff are always wanting to, attend these things. So you have to kind of manage, your budget of how much you're going to spend every year in participating, but also, of course, selecting which ones. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that, and this could be a good tip for a lot of companies out there. One of the things that I've put in place with a lot of my staff is, if you want to attend something, I don't want you sitting in the crowd. You're going to the trade show to network, to meet people. I want you on the panel. Talk about what we're doing. Participate in the show. Get in front. So if you're going to make the investment to go, why not take it a step further and get on a panel, be a part of the show. And I think you're going to get a lot more bang for your investment in kind of taking it that extra step.
And Jeff, there are a lot of trade shows in the mining industry. So how do you see that having a positive or negative impact on your company?
Well, I think you got it. Jayson kind of hit it. You need to make sure that you're going to the trade shows, that the people that you need to connect with are going to be at. There's an endless supply of trade shows that you can go to. Really, as a part of your marketing strategy, they're quite expensive. By the time that you put 2 or 3 people up in hotels and airfares and trade show booths, so you really have to pick the ones where you really feel you're going to get the best bang for the buck.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. So the next question is for you, David. Someone wants to learn more about your vision. So what made you decide to think big and grow outside of Canada?
Right. It's a good question. Well, I think it comes back to kind of the fundamental values of what our company is, Cowater is, and it's, again, we're this management consulting company. We're full of people that are passionate about bringing Canadian expertise around the world helping people in underdeveloped and less developed countries. So the vision, the desire to do this kind of work was easy once we all kind of got together and we had that common ground. The thinking big and identifying opportunities that are realistic and within our reach that maybe we didn't think were there, well, that takes a kind of a special group and perseverance and patience, as we were saying before, in really going after it.
You mentioned the 4 Ps earlier. Do you remember what those 4 Ps are?
Yeah, I think there may even be 5, as I was partnerships, as we keep talking about.
Yeah.
People, so HR, both your people and the people you're working with. Patience, perseverance, those 2 kind of go together. And then projects, or we call them projects, or opportunities, or clients. So all those Ps, and then at the end I'd throw on the Q for quality, and the C for Canada. Those 2 kind
And
of
the C for Canada.
those
Love
2
it.
kind of go together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Good. That's a good strategy, a good focus to have
Yeah,
those
if
4 or
you-
5 Ps.
If you focus on all of those things, and especially follow through with the Q, the quality, that's a good recipe.
And profit at the end of the day.
Well, profit. Yeah. Well, that should come naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wondering if CME has been involved in any of the Canada-European Union Trade Agreement discussed, and if so, whether CME believes there will be new export opportunities realized by Canadian manufacturers when implemented.
Well, we have been very
Involved.
engaged in, as the negotiations proceeded. I really want to provide a shout out to the negotiator, chief negotiator Steve Verhoeven, because I think he did an extraordinary job of negotiating with not only with Europeans but with the provinces and with
Multi-levels of
with
negotiation.
business as well.
Right.
And what we have, I think, is a really very good agreement in terms of one that will offer opportunities for Canadian companies there, and for 2 reasons. One is that it's not just dealing with tariffs and sort of not just sort of a NAFTA-based trade agreement. This is one that will allow, for instance, companies to certify to product standards, get their products certified in the European market here in Canada. It'll allow them to move skilled people, business people, across from Canada to Europe to provide customer service, for instance. It'll open up the services market, it'll protect investment, it'll open up a huge market for procurement that Canadian companies have been excluded from, as well as lowering tariffs and making sure that regulations are better dealt with. So I think it's a great agreement. But the second reason I think it is great, we've become a partner of a network called the Enterprise Europe Network, set up by the European Commission. It's a network to identify opportunities for technology partnerships, and not just opportunities, but qualified leads for these technology partnerships. We began this in September, and we've already done 26 joint ventures, largely with small Canadian companies with technologies where they found a European partner to license the technology to manufacture or to distribute that product in Europe. So CETA is not just an abstract idea about opportunity. I can see the
Positive impacts
the very
and-
positive impact it's
Yeah.
having, and I can see the opportunity there that is not just a kind of a market opportunity, but it's a real business opportunity that companies are
great.
undertaking. So I think there is a lot of opportunity, not without a well thought out strategy, not without a technology at a level of quality and a level of service that where you will be competitive in the European market. And I think it also, as I said before, opens up opportunities for Canadian companies to partner with multinationals to do business, not just in Europe, but in China and Latin America and elsewhere around the world.
Yeah.
Excellent. So we have time for just one last question. Can members of the panel elaborate on their experience with developmental banks or organization, sales cycle and strategies as you are going into foreign markets?
Yeah,
Probably
that's
David.
probably, yeah. For me, most of our clients are either all of the big development banks, World Bank, Asian Development Bank, African Development Bank, Inter-American Development Bank, which is Latin America, and there's a whole bunch more. The cycle, concept to actually starting a contract is probably 2 years, and that's 1 year on the bank side and coming up with an idea, designing a project, getting an RFP out there, and when they get the RFP out there, then they're handing it over to us to respond, which is usually, so they have 1 year on their side to get the RFP out, and then 2 months to respond, 3 to 4 months to evaluate, a couple more months to negotiate a contract, and before you're actually on the ground starting the work, it's probably a 2-year cycle. So
Patience
and perseverance.
Yeah.
Yeah, patience and perseverance, and of course that's a long time. So if you are making the investment to follow that opportunity and come up with a bid and get on the ground before you actually submit your proposal, so you've got all of that local knowledge built in. So it's a big investment. So you really you got to be committed. You got to be committed.
Jeff, do you feel like your sales cycles is longer in foreign markets compared to in Canada?
Absolutely. A foreign sales cycle could be 2 years to 5 years sometimes. So absolutely, it's a long cycle for us.
Yeah.
Excellent. So that's all the time we have for today. But if we didn't have a chance to get your question, please feel free to contact us by email, and we'll do our best to answer that question within 24 hours. I'd also like to remind participants that they'll be able to review today's presentation on our website. You'll be receiving an email from EDC with a link to access it. We certainly encourage you to share that link with anyone who might benefit from this presentation. If you'd like to learn more about various markets, just go to our website and look under our Country Info tab. You'll find a ton of information and resources there. So thank you very much for your participation and for joining us today.